afternoon. I'm Ray Keck from Berlin, Wisconsin, NFO member from Waushara County. While most of our interest, of course, has been centering around the holding action and its progress and how we've been doing in it, today we felt it quite necessary that we should possibly clear up many of the details, some of the things which happened at the tragic event in Bondwell, Wisconsin a week or so ago. We have with us today people who were there and will give their eyewitness account of the tragedy. First of all, I would like to read a man's opinion. It's from a speech called A Moral Outlook on Organization. An address by Father Dismas Trader, OFM of Pulaski, Wisconsin. Father Dismas is manager of the monastery farm at Pulaski and a member of the NFO. And I quote him, "The little knowledge that I possess, I should be and am willing to share with others, more the better. The same should hold for every one of you. There are still many people struggling along in the darkness of ignorance, prejudice, and error. Make it a point to enlighten them. Show them the true light. Impart to them your convictions, your unbiased knowledge, your zeal for a just cause. Inspire them with your readiness, not only to fight for, but also, if need be, to die for it. People have died for much less than that." Wednesday, September 9th, farmers gathered at the Equity Stockyards in Bondwell, Wisconsin to protest against low farm prices. These were farmers with a cause. Two of them died for this cause. This time now I'd like to call on Mrs. Melvin Cummings, the widow of one of these men who were at the Equity Bondwell scene. Mrs. Cummings.
Words cannot express the deep and heartfelt thanks my children and I wish to convey to all the friends and neighbors who were so wonderful in helping us at this time of our great need. The loss of our beloved husband and father is not easy to bear, but with God's guiding hand, he can see it through. Melvin was a farmer all his life. He worked at 2 jobs, the farm and in the potatoes and at the sawmill for 14 years while we lived in Polar. The farm there became too small for the family, and he was getting too old to take the long hours of 2 jobs. So with the help of God, we were able to buy this farm we have now. He was so happy and proud. I would like an extra special thanks to all the farmers who left their work to come and help fill our silos. To the farm members of the NFO, I would like to say thanks so much for all the cards, letters, and money. God bless you all. But I also say stick together and pray, not only at night or at the table, but wherever you are and every time you look and see all the wonderful things God has given you already. Thank him again and again, and ask him to see you through this, that we get a fair price for our hard work. Please, I beg of all NFO members, pray to God as Melvin and I did, and ask him to see us through. We farmers know the government doesn't care about us. They receive their big wages, and if they want more, they just pass a bill and they get it. So the farmers will have to stick together if they are ever going to get their fair prices. We must hold together and pray together. And to Mr. Muller, I say, God, watch over you and take care of you from all harm, so that Mrs. Muller won't have the heartache I am now having, and won't have to know how it is to have an empty chair at the table and the loneliness of an empty home. But may God be with us all. In closing, I just like again to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. May God be with us all as we continue our fight for what my husband died believing in. Now the NFO be strengthened and encouraged to continue as we fight for our rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Cummings, for coming here today. It took a great amount of courage to do this. Now, to my right, we have 2 fellows who were eyewitnesses at this scene. To my nearest is Elmer Van Giem from Route 2 Pulaski, and next to him is Roger Hines from Route 1 Bondwell. I don't know which one of you fellows want to go first, but Elmer, possibly you would. We'd like you men to state just exactly what you saw happen at Bondwell that day. We know there have been many, many stories, papers and so on. We would like to see it as you fellows saw it happen.
Well, I was in the front line on this demonstration, this peaceful demonstration, and I glanced up the road and I seen this truck coming. I recognized it as Ivan Miller's, and when he pulled up, he stopped. He had the right blinker on. He stopped within 2 feet of me, and there was people told him that possibly it'd be best not to go in, but he had the window shut. We don't know if he heard us or not. Possibly did. Then the truck was rocked slightly, well, a little bit, and then he backed up, and there was an officer. There was quite a few officers across the road, sheriff's deputies and highway patrol. There was several, over 8 to 15, something like that. When there was an officer across the road that motioned him up 117 there into Bondwell. I seen him wave his arm twice up the road. And when he backed up, I heard a clunk in the back end, like the truck was moving back as he shifted forward. And when he started forward, everybody assumed he was going up the road. And all of a sudden, he just pulled right into the crowd. There was a lot of people there. As far as I know, there were 10 or 15 deep right behind me. I mean, I'd looked just moments before, and there was just a solid crowd. And he pulled right in, and while I was right on the front of the truck, my hands were right under the windshield, right in front of the driver. Was on the, well, facing the driver. I'd have been on the right front, just off center. And well, I just couldn't get back. There was too many people. I was bumping people. I tried to get around. I couldn't. And eventually I ended up 28 feet from where I started. And I got around the truck somehow. I don't know how. And I was off balance, and I couldn't stop from going down. I thought I was going to get run over by the back wheels, and I don't know how I got out of it, actually. It was really chaos there. So when I got up, I was just about 5 feet from Mr. Cummings. I do believe I possibly was under the truck. I seen rack above me once. It was really a rough deal.
Roger, what do you want to add to this? I understand you were on the opposite side, at least after it happened. Is that correct?
I was on the north side of the truck, and I seen a man go under the rack. He was hit by the front part of the rack, and he fell under the rack, and then the truck hit me. And where I was, if I was under the rack, or whether I was dragged along or what I hung on to, I don't know. But I seen a body come through from the front. I seen another body under the truck, and when I got away from that truck, I was way down by the gate. And I don't know what all happened during that time, where the people were, because I didn't see any that was behind me, and all I seen what was happening underneath the truck.
Okay. We'll probably have some more questions for you fellows in a few minutes. To my left is Lawrence Dahl from Waupaca County. He was also present, and he had a little different observation point. Lawrence, how did the view look from where you were standing?
Well, I was probably, in some respects, a better witness than these fellows were, because I was standing back, almost directly in front of the gate at the yards. And as the truck pulled up, I was visiting with my wife and another couple from our area. And I didn't pay a lot of attention to the truck at first, because several trucks had come up, smaller, they were to be sure, but they had come up and had been talked into moving along. Well, I see the large crowd around the truck, and I moved away from my wife to try to get close to the truck and see what they were saying. Well, the truck was rocked somewhat by members, not enough to cause the State Patrol any anxiety, apparently. They didn't come over and tell them not to do it. And the truck started to back up, and the farmers left the truck alone, thinking, as I did, I imagine, that it was going to move on down the road. Instead of this, it slammed into gear and just plowed right into the crowd. Standing as I was to decide by now, I was amazed at the speed with which it moved into the crowd, and the farmers with their hands up in front of them trying to protect themselves and backing up as fast as they could, trying to almost running backwards, you say. The truck went past me at a high rate of speed, and my wife was standing directly in front of the truck wearing a yellow sweater. I say this because it meant that out of this crowd she was very visible. I thought for a second for sure when she disappeared from view that, my God, I thought my wife had been killed, run over. I looked under the truck to see what was there, and there I saw a man lying. I thought for a minute that the truck would straddle him and that he would be in the clear, but he wasn't. He was run over completely by the wheel. Truck went on by then. The gates swung open just in the nick of time, I would say, and the truck went into the yard again at a high rate of speed. I saw my wife standing then. I see that she wasn't hurt, so not knowing, I don't know yet just why, but I ran after the truck. I followed the truck into the yard, even started around the building, which is some, I would estimate, probably a 4 or 5 acre yard there. And the building set some, I would guess, at least 300 feet back from the gate. I saw the truck was going all the way around the gate, and I couldn't chase it any further. We turned around and came back just in time to see the truck pull up and stop by the Equity buildings, right back of a car. Now, at this time, I saw a farmer pick up a stone, fling it through the windshield of the truck, and fall down behind the car for protection. As I got up to the truck, I saw why he had fallen down, and this was because the driver was sitting with a pistol in his hand, pointed out the window. I came up very close to the truck and heard him say to a farmer who had taken hold of the door handle, "If you open that door, I'll shoot you." Well, some of the farmers decided if they couldn't get him out, the high say feelings by this time were very high. They backed off. A deputy ran up, and the deputy said, "Let me handle this, boys, let me handle this," and the farmer let go of the truck door, backed away. At this time, there was no damage to the truck, as I could see it, other than this broken windshield. But I'm sure that the truck was not damaged in any way when it headed into the yards. My wife, when I talked with her later, stated that she had been standing directly beside one of the victims. The truck actually brushed her as it went by, and she saw the front wheel run right over one of the men. I know that it was a great shock to all of us. Everyone was stunned. The troopers on the road didn't even follow the truck, just the one deputy that was even able to move and react to it. It was a great tragedy. It's an unbelievable thing. I went home later on in the day, and when I was milking that evening, a farmer came from some 15 miles away from where I lived and came in the barn, and he said that he had been there at the yards, and he was not a member of the NFO, but he was a member of Equity. And he stated that he got wind of this demonstration, he went up there. And he said, I can't believe what I saw. I just can't believe it. But he says, I know it happened, and I've come home back here. He says, I want to join the NFO right now. I've stayed out too long. We went to the house, and he joined the NFO, and he said that he was going to go out and tell his story to other people. Again, he stated that he just couldn't believe it. He said that he wouldn't drive through a herd of cattle on the road like that. Loss of life is the height of tragedy, no doubt about that. It's the heartache and despair that go with it are absolutely beyond compare. However, we've had heartache and despair in rural America for 12 years now. For 12 years, this country has been operating under survival of the fittest in rural America. 200,000 families a year have had to make decisions, heart-rending decisions, had to give up their farms. In many cases, these were the places where they were raised, lived there, all their friends. They just can't make it. Prices have been depressed to the point where they can no longer go on. They've had to make these decisions. They had to leave, to go looking for a job, which probably doesn't even exist. We have over 6 million unemployed people. What chance does a man, possibly 50 years old, have today to get a job? It's a funny thing, but if I would go through rural America today, preaching Darwin's theory of evolution and the accompanying philosophy of survival of the fittest, people would chase me away. And this is as it applies to the beasts of the jungle. They'd chase me away. But they take this same law and they apply it to people and they accept it. And it's one of the things that I will never stop fighting against. We have to come to the point in this country of ours where people are upmost, where they are of prime consideration, where we consider the feelings of people more than efficiency and automation. It wouldn't be necessary for us to have demonstrations and so forth, and to fight for this cause, and to die for it if necessary, if we could only get a fair shake out of this society. But people stand by and they don't seem to care. And again, if it was an unavoidable thing, if it just couldn't be helped that farmers had to leave the farm, it wouldn't be such a tragedy. But the thing is that this is being planned. There is a plan to solve the farm problem by removing people from the farm. And I think it's about the most bitter hoax that's ever been played on this country. Ray, you know the program I am referring to now, of CED. Can you explain that and bring in some of how it has built up and been the back of this heartache that we have in rural America today?
Yes, the CED, the Committee on Economic Development, while it has only been brought to our light possibly the last 2-3 years, it actually was formulated in 1942 or 22 years ago. Any of you farmers who think back, this was, I believe, in August of '62, the NFO members at that time were aware of the plan which is being advocated by the CED, and there were demonstrations held as early as that date against this plan of removing farmers from agriculture in a methodical process. If you do recall, there were demonstrations on Sears and Roebuck with their catalogs, on Ford Motor Company, and so on. The reason for this is that there were executives and businessmen from around 200 different interests in the country who had formulated this policy. And these men were, as I say, many of them executives with these big industries. And many times these industries did not even know that their men were actually going along with this plan. Now this plan was this: to move from the farm around 400,000 farm laborers or farmers per year. In a 5-year period, there would have been a withdrawal of 2 million farmers and their families. Now this was to be done by simply lowering the price each year, an actual forcing off of the land, what you might say survival of the fittest. Their idea was that as they always like to refer to them as the inefficient farmers, were forced off, then the ones that were left, of course, would get bigger and stronger. The one thing that I've always seen against this idea was what were they going to do with these 2 million farmers and their families? Because we all know the chronic unemployment problem we have. But their idea was to move them into towns and cities, or actually to be away from the towns, into your larger cities, your urban areas, and retrain these farmers for new jobs, new employment. This was their solution to the farm problem. Now, I'd like to quote here a few paragraphs, if you will bear with me, from a new farm paper called the Farm Temple. It has just started in publication this past year. It might be well to point out that the CED policy for agriculture has been put into effect with remarkable success, and the goal of putting the farmer out of business is being achieved through low prices. And I might add here, there have been various people pointing this out to us, to government officials and so on, to farm leaders, that this is happening. And the immediate reply they got was, it can't happen here. They won't let it. But the sorry story is that they are letting it happen, and nobody is stopping it. One can be allowed to wonder whether, in fact, it is not already too late. Obviously, some of the men who write policy are brilliant and power-hungry. These men do not want an independent, prosperous farm community. At best, they favor farming as a public utility, and some are interested only in gain and care not whether this comes from the taxpayer as drained off through the paper and transfer work connected with foreign aid, or from the farmer the policy papers are processing into bankruptcy. The truth is that most supporting members of CED are hardly aware of what is going on. When NFO farmers objected to the Committee for Economic Development Program for Agriculture and registered that objection by piling Sears catalogs in front of the Lincoln, Nebraska store because it was a supporting member of CED, Sears was prompted to withdraw its CED support and repudiate the statement. One can hardly doubt that Sears had anything to do with the statement in the first place. Then it goes on to state that there are some 1,400 status-seeking men of distinction who belong to this CED group. And the most interesting part of this to me is that of these 200 men who drew this up, to my knowledge, not a one was an actual farmer. And still they were going to tell us, explain to us the best thing for our future, how to help us out. And it actually meant moving us off the land. Now there was a study taken at the University of Nebraska in 1963 of how this would affect their state. And here's what they found. They figured that in the next 5 years, if this plan was put into effect, and I might add, while it is not openly endorsed, it is in effect right now. It is doing the job they've set out to do. But they stated that if the plan was put into effect, in the next 5 years they would lose 1/2 of the farms in the state of Nebraska, which would be about 45,000 farmers and their families. Now this in itself is bad enough, but then they figured that for every farmer in the state of Nebraska there was another man in communities of 2,500 population or that vicinity who was also dependent upon that farmer for his job. So naturally, if you would remove the farmer, you would remove the job. So instead of 45,000 farm families, you would have a total of 90,000 farm and non-farm families who would be without occupation. Now these would not be going into your smaller cities for employment or your smaller towns. They would be going into your urban areas, seeking employment there with the already unemployed. So this is why we see this cause today, the determination being displayed by the farmers in America, in the middle part of America, throughout this holding action. They know what the score is. These are informed men. They know what the future in agriculture is, and they are determined that this program will work because the alternative is so ghastly that it scares us. I would like to comment here of a church leader in Portage County who made a statement at a meeting this spring that he said, we are losing what people in other countries are going through a revolution to gain back, and that is the land. This time I would like to read a statement here by Vincent Rossiter, president of the Bank of Hartington, Nebraska. And it's entitled, It's Time Someone Wakes Up. This man has made a thorough study of agriculture problems, and he wrote this up after the incident at Bondwell on the 9th of September. This has appeared, by the way, in many of your local papers as a paid ad. I'm sorry to say some papers have seen fit not even to carry it as a paid ad. The NFO does not advocate or condone violence and seriously regrets violence from whatever source. But it is evident that the plight of the farmer has been dealt with so lightly by constituted government and by responsible business people that a Wisconsin truck driver apparently felt privileged to drive his stock truck into a group of farmers, killing 2 men and injuring 3 others. It's time someone wakes up. Peaceful farmer members of the National Farm Organization and self-respecting people everywhere are shocked at the wanton disregard of human life that was demonstrated in Bondwell, Wisconsin on September 9, 1964. This was a black day for those of us who believe in the golden rule. Farmers everywhere are deeply indebted to the memory of the 2 Bondwell, Wisconsin farmers who were killed and the 3 others who were injured while they were engaged in peaceful demonstration to dramatize the plight of the family farm. Of the 986,000 families in the state of Wisconsin, 129,000 live on the farms, and of these 129,000, 50,000 are categorized as poverty families who earn less than $3,000 money income annually. How are these families to help themselves except by peaceful demonstration in organizations when no one else seems to care about them? It is time that all concerned recognize that the National Farmers Organization is a new force in agriculture and begin to try to understand it and its goals. There is nothing unique or new about endeavoring to attain a price for farm products that is relative to the cost of other goods and services. The difference is that the National Farmers Organization is now, for the first time in half a century, offering agriculture a method of marketing that will accomplish this long-sought objective. Evidently, NFO people don't intend to slacken their efforts until this goal is accomplished. Farm income never stops once it is started until it filters into every nook and cranny of our domestic economy. The time has come for the rural business and professional people to understand that the farmer is only the first recipient of the farm income. The rural business and professional people benefit on the first turn of the farm dollar. Hence, it flows through the cash registers of the rural city service centers, who are the primary distributors of goods and services to the rural towns and to the farms that surround these rural towns. And from the rural city service centers, these dollars flow out to the urban and industrial United States for additional supplies of the widest variety of goods and services consumed by any major segment of the economy. I'd like to break in here and state how this exemplifies what I just stated about the Nebraska report about the farmers leaving and the small-town businessman going with him, or the small-town employee, because his job is lost. Now back to this statement. The farm dollar is a dollar with a lot of mileage in it, but it has to be earned by the farmer first. This is what the NFO is endeavoring to do for the United States. Get the farm dollar started through the economy by getting them earned in fair and adequate quantities at the farm level. No one in the rural United States can safely ignore the dire need for a better price at the farm level that benefits every segment of the economy in increased markets for goods and services on the return trip. Please make mention or make particular care of this last paragraph. I extend my sympathy to the families of the Wisconsin farmers who gave their lives in an effort to benefit all America. And I very highly respect the members and officers of NFO for their continued and determined efforts to solve the problem in spite of the ignorance and blind prejudice displayed by those people who oppose them. Vincent Roster, Harrington, Nebraska.